She struggled to grasp the unfolding events. Within just 1 week, 3 out of the 8 puppies born to her Cocker Spaniel had inexplicably vanished. Dread gnawed at her, anticipating the worst outcome. For days, she scoured every inch of their surroundings, but the puppies remained elusive. Then, on a fateful day, the truth revealed itself. It turned out her longtime cat companion had been seizing the puppies in her mouth, ferrying them to an undisclosed spot. Witnessing the unsettling actions of her cat, a gasp escaped her lips, unable to contain her astonishment. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Miss Kitty. She usually stayed at the Grants' house, but she was well-liked, taken care of, and fed by almost everyone who lived nearby. The cat would spend most of her time outdoors, roaming around the trailer park where the Grants lived in Seneca, South Carolina. Like most cats, she was a bit of an individualist, but there was something else about Miss Kitty. She had a fiery, strong character, but she wasn't vicious or aggressive. And even though she wouldn't always be docile or obedient, she wasn't difficult to get along with either. She was also a very intelligent animal who would always surprise everyone with her ability to understand and figure her way out of certain situations. Everyone admired these qualities of hers, especially after what she had gone through a few years ago. Years ago, Miss Kitty had given birth to 7 little kittens. Everyone in the trailer park, especially the Grants, was delighted to see how blissful the young mother was and how adorable her kittens were. But what should have been a joyful occasion would end up being a source of sorrow and grief for everyone who knew and loved Miss Kitty. One day, one of her 7 kittens passed away. The Grants were devastated, and the worst part was that it wouldn't end there. In a matter of weeks, all the kittens from Miss Kitty's litter had deceased. It was an absolutely heartbreaking event for the Grants and everyone else in the trailer park. But above all, it was particularly sad for Miss Kitty. The cat entered a deep depression right after the decease of her litter. She barely ate, and she stopped going outside as often as she used to. She would just stay in the Grants' house, sleeping all day. But eventually, she got better. She recovered her naturally strong character. In a way, it was accentuated by the painful experience, but the latter would, for better or worse, forever leave a mark on her, and this would have consequence. Not too long after Miss Kitty had lost her litter, the Grants had adopted a black Cocker Spaniel. She was named Smoochie, and even though at first the Grants were afraid that she may not get along with Miss Kitty, it all seemed to have worked out fine. It's not like they were besties, but they tolerated each other, minded their own business, and coexisted peacefully. However, something happened that altered the peace in the Grants' house. Smoochie had a litter of puppies, and they all looked just like her, with black hair, floppy ears, and smart eyes. But there was a problem. Smoochie didn't seem to be a good mother. She didn't show much care for her puppies and only fed them reluctantly. On top of that, Miss Kitty, another pet, appeared jealous and sad around the puppies. The Grants hoped that the pets wouldn't cause any problems, but something worse happened. One of Smoochie's puppies disappeared without a trace. They searched everywhere and asked neighbors for help, but the puppy was nowhere to be found. Strangely, Smoochie didn't seem bothered by it. The next day, another puppy vanished, and the Grants were puzzled. They searched again, but found nothing. Smoochie's lack of concern made them worried. They didn't want to believe it, but they started to wonder if Smoochie was involved in the puppy's disappearance. The very next day, the same thing happened. There was one puppy less than the litter, but this time, the Grants' wife, Missy, saw something through the window that gave her a clue about what had been going on. Miss Kitty was tiptoeing across the garden, carrying one of the puppies in her mouth. So it was her, Missy thought. She decided to follow the cat to see what was going on. Miss Kitty ventured into the garden of one of the Grants' neighbors named Linda Blackwell. Then she got under her home. Missy got on her hands and knees to do the same, and she could see Miss Kitty jumping into an opening. She didn't know what to expect, and her heart had been racing with anxiety all the way. But when she peeked inside the opening, she instantly smiled, feeling a strong sense of relief. Miss Kitty had taken it upon herself to care for the puppies, tending to them like their own mother. She even fed them with her own milk, and the puppies seemed happy with her. It was as if they had found a new mother in Miss Kitty, despite Smoochie's lack of motherly skills. The Grants were relieved that things were working out well, but there was still one problem. For the puppies to grow up healthy, they needed to be fed by their real mother. Even though Smoochie didn't want to do it, the Grants found a way to make her fulfill this part of her motherly duties. The puppies enjoyed their time with Miss Kitty, and she became like an adoptive mother to them. However, The Grants knew that they had to find a way to help Smoochie become a better mother. They realized that their current situation couldn't continue. Smoochie wouldn't be the mother the puppies needed without their intervention. They had never heard of a dog mother being unmotherly, so they needed to do some research to figure out how to help their dog. But they had no idea what challenges lay ahead. The Grants thought long and hard to come up with solutions for their problem with Smoochie. One idea was to take her to the vet to get advice about her behavior. Even though Smoochie hated going to the vet and would get really anxious during the trip, they decided it was worth it to find out what was wrong with her. So, they got her leash and managed to get her into the car despite the struggles. It was a tough drive, but they were determined to help their dog. Finally, they arrived at the vet's office with Smoochie. They were eager to hear what the vet had to say about her condition. They thought they were prepared for his words, but what he said surprised and worried them. The vet's explanation left them feeling unsatisfied. He used complicated words and basically said he didn't know why their dog was sad. They paid for the vet's help but got more questions instead. On the way home, they felt even worse, especially for Smoochie, who had a tough time at the vet's office. When they got back home, Smoochie just wanted to sleep, but they knew they had to find a solution. The puppies were growing fast, and they worried they wouldn't grow up well without their mom. They cared deeply for their animals and wanted the best for them. The Grants searched everywhere for answers online but found nothing. Then, unexpectedly, they received a call from an unknown number. They answered hesitantly, not knowing what would happen next. The couple nervously picked up the unexpected call, unsure of what to anticipate. Their first thought was it might be a telemarketer or prankster, a recurring annoyance. However, this call held a different purpose. The voice on the other end revealed a stranger who claimed to have heard of their predicament and offered help. Suspicion mingled with surprise at this unanticipated act of kindness. Though cautious, they couldn't ignore the enticing offer, considering their desperate situation. They faced a dilemma. Could this stranger's proposal be their salvation or a potential trap? Curiosity and desperation led them to listen to his proposition. The stranger explained that he had learned about their plight, particularly their conversation with the veterinarian, and believed he could assist. After obtaining their contact information, he had reached out to them. Anxiously, they awaited his advice, hoping it could alleviate their beloved pooch's suffering. To their surprise, the man suggested that their pooch might be experiencing postnatal depression, a condition they had never associated with animals. Taking his words to heart, they decided to pivot their efforts in that direction, clinging to the hope that it might bring relief to their beloved pet. Armed with the necessary information, they sought specialized methods to alleviate their pooch's postnatal depression. 3 strategies emerged: establishing a consistent routine, providing positive reinforcement, and increasing her exercise regimen. Reluctant to push Smoochie into activities she resisted, they embarked on this challenging journey, unsure of the outcome. After adhering to the rigorous routine for a week, a remarkable transformation occurred. Smoochie began to exhibit her old, joyful demeanor once more. Yet, the pivotal question remained: would she now care for her puppies, whom she had ignored for a month? There was only one way to know for certain: reintroducing her to the same puppies. They held their breath in anticipation. Miraculously, she recognized them as her own and assumed her maternal role. It marked an incredible turning point, and they were determined to maintain this progress. Any resemblance to real events, places, or individuals, living or deceased, is purely coincidental.